Are you, as a child of God, doing the will that God has laid out for you? Do you know what the will of God is for your life? Do you, without any doubt, know this is God's will for me? Now, God has a will for each and every one of us. But yet, everywhere I go, when I talk to people, do you know God's will for your life? They say, well, I hope so, kinda, somewhat, maybe, I think so. I'm told from all of the people that they poll that the number one question that Christian counselors get all the time is, how can I know the will of God for my life?
Come in asking, what does God want me to do? Come in saying that I have a desire in my heart, but how do I know if it's God's will or if it's just what I want to do? Come in at a crossroad, have a critical decision to make, and are wondering, which path does God want me to walk on? Discerning the will of God for the decisions of your life is not always easy. Why? Because God doesn't always speak his will in grand and glorious ways that are easy to understand. Elijah, one of the greatest prophets of God, has prayed to the Lord for God to reveal his will to him. And in chapter 19 of 1 Kings, Elijah says that a wind blew, and the wind was so strong that it began to shake the mountains. But God wasn't in that wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake, and the earth began to shake and tremble, but God wasn't speaking through the earthquake. And then there was a great and grand fire that consumed everything, but God wasn't speaking in the fire. And after the wind and after the earthquake and after the fire, there was a still small voice. And what Elijah understood is what we understand, is that God doesn't always speak in earth-moving, shattering signs and symbols that give you clarity into what God wants. That sometimes the will of God is spoken in a still, small.
I wonder if you really believe that God will fulfill his purpose for you, or are you stressed out because you are trying to fulfill God's purpose for someone else? You know, we live in a day and time where we're only one click away from seeing how someone else raises their kids. And before long, you can start to compare your purpose to their purpose, but touch somebody and say, God didn't call me to fulfill your purpose. So please do not judge me according to the standards of what God gave you, because my stewardship is not of your purpose. So I don't have to feel bad about the gifts that God did not give me if I am fully maximizing the ones that he did. All I gotta do, this will set you so free. All I've gotta do is completely commit my heart to God's purpose for me.
Sometimes you need to get knocked down before you can really figure out what your fight is and how you need to fight it. Sometimes you need to feel the pain and sting of defeat to activate the real passion and purpose that God predestined inside of you. God says in Jeremiah, I know the plans I have for you. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Hear me well on this day. This day when you have reached the hilltop and you are deciding on next jobs, next steps, careers, further education. You would rather find purpose than a job or a career. Purpose crosses disciplines. Purpose is an essential element of you. It is the reason you are on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. When God has something for you, it doesn't matter who stands against it. If it's meant for you, God will move someone that's holding you back away from a door and put someone there who will open it for you. I don't know what your future is, but if you're willing to take the harder way, more complicated one, the one with more failures at first than successes, the one that has ultimately proven to have more meaning, more victory, more glory, then you will not regret it. Press on with pride and press on with purpose and appreciate what God has brought you through.
I see it in the Bible and I want it. And I know I've been bought with a price, and I'm therefore to glorify God in my body and in my spirit. How do I know the will of God? Let's read what it says in the book of Proverbs chapter 3. Many of you have these verses memorized. Starting, if you would please, at verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. Do you understand? God says, I'm giving you an absolute promise. If you trust in me with all your heart, and if you will stop leaning on your own understanding, I will, I promise you, direct your path. This promise is in the ongoing continuum. That means God says, I'll do it and keep doing it. I will direct your path. Now, God either means that or his word's not trustworthy. But his word is trustworthy. He does mean it. Well, Brother Gibbs, I try to seek his will in major stuff. No, that's not all your ways. God says, I want you day by day, moment by moment, to be in my will. Brother Gibbs, couldn't I just play this little game with God? How about you just kind of show me, and then I'll let you know if I'm interested. But you will never know the will of God playing that game.
That's right, brother.
In all thy ways acknowledge him, all thy ways, and he shall direct thy path. You see, God wants to order all your steps every day, and he's promised to do it. But he says, I want you to understand, you can't figure it out. I don't know who the most brilliant man or woman here is, but I promise you, it's not in us to do our own steps. Our steps will lead us astray, and that's why we got to come to him and say, I trust you, you lead. We sing this great song, where he leads me, I will follow. Follow on, follow on. Do we truly mean that? Yeah, but no. See, we have a trust problem. Now you're trusting him to go to heaven, and boy, should you. But now that you're saved, he says, trust me. He loves you too much to have anything that's not in your best interest. And he says, trust me in everything. Everything. If you want to hear one thing today, his will is what's always best for you. He loves you too much to give you anything that's not in your best interest. Anything.
God has a purpose, a plan, a desire for your life. Are you willing to say to him, Lord, I want your will. I want your best plan for my life, whatever that is. And I'm willing to surrender whatever needs to be surrendered, willing to change whatever needs to be changed, but I want your best. Would you be willing to tell him that? That's the wisest decision you can make.